Well,
Well, I'll just get us started and
Yes.
you guys can go up.
yes, okay. Sorry. Jumping right in.
No worries. I'll start with the Aboriginal acknowledgement. We'd like to acknowledge that the land in which we gather is the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, the Syilx, and the Sinates peoples, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. First up is, I guess, the presentation.
Well, they're not all here, right?
Christine's on
Okay.
video and Marta is sick, so.
Oh, yeah, because I watched the last meeting and realized that the new members had lots of questions, and I thought we better be here to just, give you the information so you know what you're dealing with, because they were valid questions, I thought, but they were not answered adequately in my, when we watched what's going on. I think we should just be there and present. So I'm Lena Hoswell, and this is Bob Vincent, and we are at the moment, we call ourselves co-chairs of the EDI Advisory Committee. And so what I thought I would do is just give you a little bit of history, because it's been in the works for a long time. It's not a new committee. So if I gave you some context, you'll understand why we even have such a committee, right? So it goes back even before Donovan was here, when Paul was the chief, just after the George Floyd murder, and there was all this reaction, not only in the US, but across Canada, and Nelson was not exempt to that, and we had demonstrations, at the police station, and as a result of those, and I was, we were fairly new board members at that time, decided we would be there for the demonstration to support, to show support for the police board. But what we got out of that was that there was a group called West Puni People for Racial Justice, who were part of the organizers of those events, that they didn't have an avenue to speak to us if they had concerns. And we realized that, that was lacking, and we actually then, we meaning the board, would invite the group to come and meet with us to raise questions or whatever. That's one way of doing it. But it became evident that we really didn't need to have a mechanism like for police to connect with the community. So there was something lacking there. And some of us had been to Victoria for the annual conference for the police board. And when we were in Victoria, we realized that in Victoria, they had police and the community groups worked well together. And that conference was actually organized by them in partnership. And it was really wonderful to see. And so we thought, well, if they can do it, we can do it, and we knew that they had a committee called the DAC, I think, Diversity Advisory Committee, that was part of the police board. And so the board of that time then directed Donovan to look into that possibility of establishing a committee here in Nelson. And Donovan asked me if I would be the board representative that was part of all that discussion. So I've been part of this from the very beginning, and then I'm going to pass it over to Bob, because once the board directed Donovan to move on it, then he hired Bob, and I'm going to let her explain the rest. Oh, Paul Burkhardt was, yes. Sorry.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for having us here. So the Nelson Police Department DAC, Diversity Advisory Committee, has been in existence basically since 2021, but it was Paul Burkhardt, Chief Fisher's predecessor, that asked that I do some research for the police board of the day, and just on what was available and what was working in British Columbia around diversity advisory committees with the police force. So I looked at 4 to start, and I looked at Vancouver Police Department. They have a diversity, inclusion, and Indigenous relations section. They have, in that section, they have an Indigenous Advisory Committee. They have an Indigenous Cadet Program. They do a monthly lunch with the chief. They have a New Kids program with the Vancouver, partnership with the Vancouver School Board, a Sister Watch Committee, and then an LGBTQ2S plus community liaison as well. So I looked through all that, I had many meetings with them. Then I looked at the Greater Victoria Diversity Advisory Committee. They had a lot of initiatives ongoing, global cafes. They worked with the Justice Institute. They were very active in the community, and they had some different partnerships ongoing with different diverse groups in the Greater Victoria area. I spoke to Port Moody Police Department, and they were putting together a task force of local, and as the police chief called it of the day, police reform activists to give the board views and suggestions on police reform. So that's kind of where Port Moody was going. And then Paul Burkhardt got information from the BC Association of Chiefs of Police to determine what they were doing and looking at provincial guidelines. So I presented all the different, just the different information that was gleaned from that to the police board. Yeah, and then back in January of 2021, they asked that I attend some meetings with the Greater Victoria DAC. And it was kind of great because they were having all their meetings on Zoom then, so it was kind of easy for me from Nelson, and they gave me permission to attend. So I was part of their DAC for the better part of 6 months, and got to know Dr. Magassa, Dr. Musa Magassa quite well. We had some really interesting sessions with them around where we got to know each other better, even on Zoom breakout rooms. Talked lots about celebrating, honoring, and acknowledging diverse communities within that Victoria area. Talked about upcoming training. And then from there, we decided, I brought all that back to the board, and they decided, the Nelson Police Department police board decided that they wanted to go ahead and follow the Greater Victoria, which is, the acronym is the GBDAC. So they wanted to follow that model. So then I went back to them again and let them know that we were going to follow that. And we ended up, the police board wanted to hire, with Paul Burkhardt and then Donovan Fisher of the day, wanted to hire Dr. Magassa, Dr. Musa Magassa, to work with the board or our committee. And so we developed terms of reference over a lengthy process. Shyla was there and I was there with Dr. Magassa. And, you know, I didn't really know how to get enough diversity in the area. So Lena was part of the committee. We also had people from Anchors, Nelson Cares, the West Kootenay People for Racial Justice, from COINS, and I just did invites from my role in victim services. I invited executive directors and they all came and were part of developing the terms of reference. So that was done. And then from there, we've just moved into, we have meetings every 2 months. It's ebbed and flowed for sure, but I've been there the entire time. I've had a couple different co-chairs. The plan was always to have the Nelson Police Department change out the co-chair, their representative every 2 years. And I think that's still the plan. I've been in place a little bit too long, but I've been able to give consistency. And then Lena has stepped in as my co-chair. We had Jerry Rempel and the executive director from Nelson Cares. Different people have been co-chairs over the time. And so, yeah, we had a strategic planning session earlier this year, which, went quite well. We had we have a lot of different ideas and plans moving forward through the Strategic Planning Committee. We're part of, Inspector Jukes has joined us as a member of our NPD EDI committee. So we're super appreciative because he has past experience in the DAC as well, the GB DAC in Victoria, so he brings that with him. And it's starting to gain momentum. We have a coffee with Inspector Jukes tomorrow. One of the things that we came up with was that we just wanted to have better dialogue. There's been lots of conversation. We were part of the Market Fest. We did one night at the Market Fest. And then the next step we're undertaking is, monthly-ish coffee. This is coffee with Nelson Police Department. So we decided that Shiloh and I kind of decided the best place to maybe go the first time around was the mall. So the mall is hosting us tomorrow at 10:30 to 11:30, and Inspector Jukes is we're so glad he's coming. And so Shiloh and I will be there, and the three of us will start the conversation. Hopefully Lena might attend as well. So
Well, I plan to, on my walk back, drop in at the coffee place.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say that the process has taken a long time because we wanted to take the time, right? Like, so, it's still not where we want to be because it's organizations, and they mostly heads of organizations, so they're paid, they can come and do this kind of thing. Eventually, we are hoping that there might be a few more grassroots people at the table. But the frustrating thing has been that the process has been slow, and we're not getting things done. And it's about building relationships, right? So, stopping to have coffee with Jason is one way that people will get to meet, having a table. We're going to come up with very simple little things that we can do in the community. But I think we brought it to the board because we thought as a committee we needed a budget. And what's happened in the past is Shiloh finds us money, right? So we get treats when we come to our meetings, and it doesn't just happen like that's from somebody's budget. And I'd always thought that the committee should have our own money. And we were at a recent training. Dr. Lisa Gunderson was here, and again to talk about this kind of work that people are trying to get started in their communities. And she said that we needed to have a budget line, otherwise it just doesn't feel like the committee has much clout, right? And I thought about it. I thought, why would poor Shiloh have to look at where he can find bits and pieces that the next budget going forward that we would like a line, and I think we asked for 2,500 or something like that. Nothing huge, and it's just flows, it's little things, and that then the committee feels more legit, a committee that's really supported that the police department wants it. And initially, when things like that happen, it's because you feel it's just the right thing to do or whatever. But at some point, it'll start becoming a real thing where it's all about relationships, right? So we want to have positive relationships between community and police. So that question came up, I think, because I watched the video. I thought, oh my gosh, they don't have the information, and the questions were really good. Like it's just like, what is this committee? Who are these people? They're asking for money. So we just wanted to put you at ease, and then that because we are here because the board directed the department to set it up, but we can't do it without support. And Bob and I, or whoever is chairing that committee, we're always open to come and bring you up to date if you have any questions. So,
but I do think now it's starting to pay dividends. Like we have, good solid relationships with some significant diverse groups in the area. They have a place now. They feel comfortable. They're very engaged in the work and the meetings, and it's been slow, but they actually just approved a religious and cultural guidebook for NPD for the officers to look at, a summary document. So there has been the work done, and it's progressing, and they remind us that it takes time to do this work. So.
Yeah, the group that I mentioned, the West Kootenay People for Racial Justice, that they were coming and meeting with the board 3 times a year or whatever, and recently they said they are part of the advisory committee, and so they don't feel a need to meet separately with the board anymore. They are very satisfied that the committee is starting to do some work, and they are involved.
Sorry, well, I don't have
Kirsty's
my
got
glasses, but I
Christine has a
think
question.
it's a question.
Christine?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, and sorry, I can't see Lena and Barb, but I can hear them. So thank you very much for joining us tonight and giving more insight and information about the EDI committee, advisory committee. I really appreciate it. I was one of the people who was asking questions last time. And I also appreciate that as part of our agenda package, we have been given some terms of reference as well as a link to the Victoria document. I have to admit, I'm still a little bit confused. And one of the reasons I'm confused is it's extremely important to me that we are very clear as a board between what is clearly within board purview and accountability and what is part of operations or the department itself. And that operational board divide, I mean, we work together, but you know, it's really important just to be able to manage things like budget, for instance, because if something's operational, I mean, it's very timely. We're going to talk about budget tonight. The chief will be incorporating things that are line items into a budget. If it's part of a board budget, then, you know, that might have a different level of consideration. And so when I looked at the terms of reference, it clearly says it's an advisory committee, so that answered one of my questions. But then the document itself speaks to, you know, that this is an advisory committee to the department and the board. It says that only once, and the rest of the document references the department, and it says it reports to the chief. And when I look at the Greater Victoria document, that's clearly a departmental police agency document. Like the members of the committee appear to be police officers, not board members. Now, maybe I'm misinterpreting some of that because I've only looked at the documents. I haven't done anything further. So I don't know either Barb, Lena, or even Jason, since you have experience with the Greater Victoria Diversity Advisory Group. If anyone can provide some thoughts or clarification on that. And if it's something that we should table or I can take offline, I'm also very happy to do that as well. So I'm hoping that this question makes sense to people. If not, I can restate.
Speaking on the part of the Greater Victoria DAC Committee, it is police members and members from the community.
Yeah, I would say that the board was board directed us to do this, but really our connection is with the department. And so in terms of a budget, I don't see it as a board expense. I see it as a department expense, and the chief will have to find the money or the line or whatever and tell us what's affordable. But it's a very small budget.
I think, and for me, it's not so much the amount of budget. Like, I think we'll find money for the budget. It's where it lies, who makes the decisions around it, and who's the point of contact and representatives.
Yes.
Those are really important, and this is an extremely important and critical committee. So, like my initial reaction, and of course it's just preliminary, and is that really the terms of reference should not reference the board. It's really the department. And that maybe this is an opportunity to rethink, you know, whether it's actual police officers who should be part of the committee, because at the end of the day, if the intention is to develop relationship and trust and other things between the community and the police department, ideally, police officers are the ones who are there and not board members. But that's just my sort of initial reaction looking at the documents. So anyways, just something to consider. At the end of the day, the committee itself, I think, is a very important committee. And of course, I think we would all support its objectives and goals, including budget items.
Yeah, I agree with you, Christine, that really the board role is minimal. Like I said, and it is about the department and the police officers, and for the longest time, we didn't have an officer on the committee, and we're happy to have Jason, because it is about building that relationship, and we would work with the chief. I think the chief has also tried to not impose, like in the planning stages, he didn't want it to be like heavy on the police side or whatever. So that is that sort of tentative, relationship. But really, we wouldn't be here if the chief didn't support us. And it is, and we are just an advisory body. We do not make any big decisions. We want to inform the department when there's training opportunities available and training, and maybe at that time we would share with board members to participate in the training, that kind of thing. But I'm on the committee as a community person now, and before that, like Devin plays a role. It's just to be there to keep to keep abreast and be informed, kind of thing. But that's it. It's a very minimal role for the board member. So it's not like that the board members have to be involved. So that's my understanding anyway. Do you have anything to add?
No, I will just reiterate that our plan is by the spring of 2026 that I be replaced by a police officer. That's always been the goal. And I could offer the consistency while we were in moving it forward. So yeah. I've been there since the inception.
Can I, through the chair? So when I read the terms of reference, and then I went and read the GPDA one, has there, and so maybe before you go, for this changeover, I did look and I see that is the Greater Victoria. So you've got Saanich, Esquimalt, like you have transit, military because of Victoria being so close. Yeah, Oak Bay. What I don't see or have heard any wind of is our local RCMP. We're not the only game in town. And I'm just wondering whether there was any contemplation as you were doing. I'm looking at the two of you because you guys kind of were the developers of it, to reach out to the RCMP to make sure that they are part of this. Like we might police Nelson, but we don't police alone. Any thought on trying to get an officer from the RCMP?
That's a really good thought, and it's never been thought of.
No.
We don't. We've just kept.
We just tried to get our act together.
Well, that's what I mean. But now that you got your act kind of together.
I don't know.
I couldn't. Well, I'm slowly hearing because I as you know, because you listened to it. So Leah, I've been at the table now here for a bit, and I probably asked the most questions last week because I'm very confused about this committee. But the more I hear it, the clearer it's getting that we don't have to have. This is not when we're assigning board tasks that we have to assign a board member to this committee. This is really the community and the police, because I read here quite clearly, reports any interesting things or whatever to the chief.
Yeah.
So I can see where I was trying to figure out where the line of communication was supposed to be going. But I thought it was interesting that this group in Victoria has a much bigger sort of footprint. And I think that in some regards that might make it, it's still a struggle when you start something new, but I think it's important to have them included as well.
It's a good idea, but like I said, we're just getting started, and that terms of reference was just the very first one, and every year we're going to review it and update it, whatever it might be, reflecting more the reality of what we do, and that definitely can include the RCMP, but we got to be clear as to what we're doing first before we can do that.
An excellent idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Chief, do you have anything to add to what we've said?
No, it'd probably be mostly reiterating what you said, but as you pointed out, I think there was a conscious effort made to keep the police a little bit removed from the setup and the start of this for a couple of reasons. One, not unduly influencing it to sort of be what we wanted it to be, because that was never the idea. And then when you start talking about, members of the community that maybe have had bad experience with the police, or, whether that was here or where they previously been, we were concerned that that would cause some people maybe not to come forward and be part of the committee. So I thought it was a good idea to have things set up, build that comfort zone within the community members on the committee first, and then now we're starting to integrate a little bit more of a police presence onto that committee without it being, overbearing or taking over the committee. Because again, that's the exact opposite of what the point of the committee was. And again, the RCMP, I think that's a good idea to explore and see if that's, something that they would like to be part of and contribute to, or have some suggestions as to, people in the surrounding communities that might want to be part of the committee as well.
There's 3 of us right now doing a review of who's actually in the committee. Dr. Masalji, Shalina, and then Carla from the school district. And we're doing a review of who's in the committee and who else we can include, right? So that's true. But, and when Inspector Jukes arrived, the committee was comfortable with the space, they were comfortable with the format, they're comfortable with the meeting, they're comfortable with working within this parameter. And then when Jason arrived, and they welcomed him, right? Like they were ready for him. So that was a good idea to just kind of go at it slowly, and it's taken time. But now he's welcomed him, a very valuable contributor now.
Yeah, and I think initially the board's involvement was because Donovan approached me as a board member to say, could you be part of that process? And that's kind of how I got involved. And so I called myself the board liaison or whatever. But it's up to the board entirely as to whether you want to continue having a board member be part of that, or whether we just come and update you from time to time, but we would deal directly with the chief. So that would be less confusing, maybe, I don't know. But right now my role is as a member in the community, but I'm not. But I have, the 6 years being on the board, with that background.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Well, thank you, Leanne. Barb, that was a great discussion.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anytime.
We'll see you tomorrow, Jason.
Yes, sounds good.
I'm thinking maybe we push the finance presentation out. Okay, go on.
Sure.
Unless you want to stay.
Sorry, can I just,
Christina's
Good, I pulled stuff out of the consent agenda. So.
sorry,
Christine?
Eric.
Yeah.
Based on that information, I would like to put forward a resolution that the Nelson Police Board does not have a representative on the EDI advisory committee, and that the committee is most appropriately, having representatives from the department, which appears to be the actual purpose of that committee, and that the board's oversight comes through the chief, who will update us, or from time to time, if we request direct updates from the committee, we could make such a request. And I'm fine if people want to put it over to another meeting, but I think it's important that we make a decision on that for clarity. And again, I assume any budget items are already being considered in the budget that will be presented today.
Yeah, maybe we push that to December's meeting. Maybe just formalize exactly what the resolution would be and kind of our thoughts. I think there might be some tie-in with that BC provincial policing standards. That's maybe a later discussion.
Well, we have responsibility for diversity and the other standard there. That doesn't mean we have to be on committees. That just means that we need to ensure that the department has something going on, policy or something,
Yeah.
that addresses those issues. So to me, that would not leave a gap. But yeah, I'm happy to do what most people prefer. If you want to put it over to the next meeting, that is fine as well. But I just want to make sure it's recorded so we don't lose sight of a resolution to bring clarity to this matter. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem either way of,
You know, I agree with Christine. There has to be this clarity
Separation.
because it's been way too confusing, and as board members change that, like I finally figured this out now. This is not on the list of we have to find somebody from the board to be on it. Now, I don't know whether or not we have to, I think that if somebody is interested and wants to go, but there would be no expectation that they need to report back. Like any group that meets that is talking about policing, I think a police board member should be able to attend, like as a person. But I think it's very important that it comes off the list of we need somebody on this committee. So
yeah,
I would agree with sort of the motion. So I think Christine, it's Janice, and I would just say, like, let's put it off to December, but let's have the maybe send Shiloh an official motion, and then we can just take a read of it. And if there's any last comments, then yeah, otherwise we can just deal with it in December.
wrap it up. And
Yeah,
go.
thank you.
Perfect, thank you, Chrissy.
So I'm free with moving item number 6A up in the agenda.
Was everyone else okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Great, thank you very much.
That's why I
So
brought these.
budget 2026, I think some information was circulated. We did send an update on that before the meeting, so information substantially the same, but if you are able to get the one that was sent out later this
I think
afternoon.
if you're on your laptop, it's
It's
updated.
updated. Look at that. I had a choice. I actually had a choice.
Is it the one that's like
Says
October
November
20th or November, whatever?
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
I've never seen that
Yeah.
choice. November 12th. Here I am.
Yeah, like that's very confusing.
And again, the numbers are the same. I just changed some of the notes on here, so at least we're all looking at the same thing. So normally I have rows and columns on here so we can sort of follow along. So at any point, if I'm talking about something and you aren't sure where I'm at, just let me know. But what we have here is the budget going left to right. We have 2024 budget, 2025 budget, and then what our forecast is for 2025, where our actual expenditures will land, and then our 2026 proposed budget. And the columns next to that show 2026 as compared to 2025's budget and the percent change. And then we've also done a 27, 28, 29, and 30 budget. As a board and as council, you only approve the current year budget, but for transparency and for kind of future planning and to keep things consistent with how the city does their 5-year financial plan, felt it was important to be able to show something that looks ahead a few years to be able to kind of line those two things up. So as far as that forecast column is concerned, we're forecasting now to come in under budget. I had on here coming in 4% under budget. Now that was before I found out about a few kind of additional expenditures that have trickled in and things like that, and maybe some other contingencies we want to set up. I'm not expecting we'll go over our 2025 budget, but that 4% might have been a bit optimistic. So maybe we can have that and sort of see where we land. Main reasons for coming under budget are really just to, where we thought we would have positions filled have not yet been filled. So we thought we would have a deputy chief in place. We thought we would have, I think there's still 2 slots for constables that are to be filled. So that's helped keep us under budget. Some other things like, legal costs will probably push us over a little bit. I don't think that'll impact 2026's budget. We carried a higher legal budget for the last couple of years, and we had some discussions on whether 2026 was a year that we could lower that, and we didn't. And now looking at it, it's probably a good thing. So we have a similarly sort of a higher legal budget in the 2026 year. So we'll just continue with that. And then, other expenditures seem to be in line with where we were forecasting. Dispatch is one area you can see where we're forecasting to come in over budget. And that sort of led to the conversations as, how do we structure dispatch to ensure that we have an appropriate budget for that department, and also look at staffing and, how do we keep during those peak hours having that second desk occupied and also be able to cover vacations and holidays and sick and training, those types of things. So you can see that the dispatch budget is, as I say, trending over budget for 2025, and we've got an increase for 2026. Other than that dispatch piece, for the most part, we don't have any new increases for 2026. There's inflationary type pieces. We have a new collective agreement. We've got some increases to other supplies and services. Our prime contract, those costs are increasing. As we add officers, we need to increase budgets for uniforms and training and things of that nature. So that's an increase in 2026. So for the 2026 budget, we're looking at a 9% increase versus 2025. And I tried to break out below there what's driving that 9%. So I don't know if you can kind of scroll down a little bit. You can sort of see I've broken it out between, wages and benefits and supplies and services. So you can see where that's coming from. 4.9% is just that general wage increase from the collective agreement. So they're continuing their market allowance that was made permanent. So that'll go into 2026. They also had a 1.5% increase halfway through 2025. And then part of that collective agreement was to add a 2.75% on that. And then 2026 is a 3%. And going forward, 2027 is a 3%.
So just for clarity,
Yeah.
so in 2025,
Yes.
we gave officers an 8.9% increase.
Well, they had the market allowance baked in.
So
Let's see if we can add this up then. Yeah. So that was part of that year.
And then there was
They had a 3%,
1.5.
Yeah.
And then 2.7 on top of that.
2.75 on top of that. Yeah. And then 2026 is 3% and 2027 is 3%. Yes.
Okay.
So that market allowance was made permanent. And I should state that was already in the 2025
budget, yeah.
We knew that.
I didn't
was the
realize
case.
that we were 1.5 and 2.9 in the year. So that's like a 4 and a bit, like, how's
Yeah.
my math?
They had a 1.5 at the beginning of the year.
4.4%
If I remember right,
increase.
1.5 at halfway through the year, at the kind of on the last day of the collective agreements, and then 2.75 was the first day of the collective agreement.
Right.
Is that another hand? Christine?
Yes, Christine looks like she
Yeah,
has her.
Yeah, hi, Chris. And thanks again for this. So I guess my question is, and maybe this is for you and the chief, but when we're looking at wages and salaries, is this fully incorporating potential increases outside of the collective agreement in relation to management positions? And does this include things like what we just talked about, which is, line items for things like community committees? And I'm just not sure, because it's not like a breakdown of every single expense. and revenue. I just am not sure the level of detail in terms of, yeah, whether this has any, I don't know if the word's buffer or if we're forecasting into next year based on things that we expect to happen, not just sort of the rollover year to year based on what we know. So currently. So I don't know if you or the chief could speak to that. I just don't want to be in a situation where we think we have a budget when we don't.
Well, I can say that, you know, on pieces like adding, and I maybe referring to the presentation that was just before this one, as far as having a, you know, a line item in there for equity, diversification, inclusion, that type of thing. I think we did add a small budget increase for that, $2,500 to do that kind of work in 2026 as a line item. We had some other budgets too that we were able to reallocate to kind of make something that kind of works for that. But I think the add was $2,500 for that. Then as far as, you know, management wages, I mean, I only know what information I have. So if that's not information that you've made a decision on, or you've discussed or passed along my way, I wouldn't have factored that into a budget.
And I'll just add on to that Chris and I have discussed, you know, some of those potential, I think the points you're talking about where there's maybe some pressures based on what some of the other departments are doing. But when we looked at timing wise with the potential new hires, timing wise when, you know, if there is any change to the pay structure of the management team, that would be later in the year, and offset with timing wise the hires or where we're going with the management team, that there's some things that I believe cancel out any impact it would have on the budget. So we've discussed it, but I would say it's not officially worked in, but there's also room to work it in if need be.
Okay, well, I'll leave it up to the chair as to whether this is something that we need to have more discussion at some point. But from a board perspective, I certainly, before we go to the city, I would like to make sure that we are very clear that we have considered all factors in terms of our budget that need to be there, so that we're not, you know, put in a situation where, you know, we think we have budget, but we actually don't, or, you know, we just accept the risk that if we, you know, want to do something that has a budget implication in 2026 and there's no budget, then that is just a decision that we'll have to live by, you know, which is a normal process. There's nothing wrong with that. So, but I'll just, yeah, I'll just leave it for that for now.
So you are coming, I believe, next
Tuesday.
week, you're coming to the city
And
for
yeah,
presentation. Is
and
my
we talked about that.
understanding. I just approved the agenda. You're on the agenda for
Yeah.
next Tuesday.
I think I'm not sure if you're asking me or telling me.
No, I just.
Planning on being there, so.
So I'm just listening to Christine say, before we go to the city, I'm just like, before we go to the city isn't like in a month. Before you go to the city is like in 6 days.
Well, I mean, I wonder if we're talking wage stuff that we want to move it in camera. Move it to the, like, because that's what we're talking about, right? It was potential wage stuff,
Yes.
which is.
Yeah, I would think it's better in camera, but I would like to just make sure that we have some opportunity for discussion in more detail.
We can move into camera at any time in the course of a meeting. So if we need to do that,
We could do
you
that now
can
and come back.
make it and then we can come back out in camera to talk specifically that falls within the well, government act at least of,
Yeah, because I think we'll.
because then it gets pretty pinned down to exactly what salaries we're talking about, and then that becomes personal information.
Because I think we'll have to come back and answer this before the end of today, so.
Yeah.
I'd say, can I get a motion to move this in camera? Seconded, Devin, and all in favor?
Give me 2 seconds.
Yes, in favor.
Yeah, so Christine, we're just gonna take a second here while Shiloh
Figures out this,
gets
The recording.
stops the recording.
Good to have board representation there.
yeah, I'm going.
Same.
Just as part of that, I had that as a question to ask. A, you know, are people coming? And B, does anybody want to speak? I know, Christine, you spoke last year, but it was kind of, you know, it was kind of a more of a one-time thing just to sort of set some ground rules or explanation of things. So I don't know if there's any need or want to speak to that again or speak to anything else that anybody had, but I wouldn't mind knowing because I can build it into my PowerPoint.
If I felt better, I might, but I don't. So I'm going to be a maybe for Tuesday anyways, so.
Okay.
But normally the chair would, you know, if anyone was to accompany you, it might be a chairperson.
Yeah, and then there's always the spontaneous questions that come up. So, I mean, we can handle those as they come up. I just wanted to make sure nobody had anything specifically they wanted to be given time to say during the formal part of the presentation.
Okay, yeah, I'll be there. All right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so.
I don't know if you guys had any more questions or you just want to.
Yeah, so you might as well hear that, so somebody needs to pass the recommendation that's on the table
back.
and you're free to go.
Okay, yeah, can I get
Oh, sorry. Were we gonna have an explanation for the 30% on dispatch before we?
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah,
now we're back, yeah.
yes. And that's really the only staffing increase in this budget. The others are all sort of those committed either through collective agreement or, you know, there's another line on here that you could probably see that, you know, when you have those positions that are 5th class or 4th class or 3rd class, after a year, they all move up in the wage grid. So there's an impact to that. So it's really that dispatch piece that's the additional ask, I guess, for 2026. And it's another 0.75 of an FTE for dispatch. And, you know, maybe I'll let the chief speak a little bit more about it, but it's really just a sort of centers around scheduling and ensuring that they have that coverage for vacation and sick and training, but also have that second desk sort of from that 8 till 8 period covered, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple things at play. Just, you know, when we're playing a little bit of catch up again, but over the last 4 or 5 years, you know, we've been catching our staffing up for officer levels to do with the increased calls for service and workload and stuff. But traditionally, the department's only had one dispatcher on, and over the last couple of years, we've started working in what we call second desk. So there's a second dispatcher there for a number of reasons, because there are certain points in the day where, you know, traditionally, and we've sort of studied the call volumes and the workloads throughout the day and kind of narrowed it down to what, you know, the peak points of the day are. But, you know, you get increased calls for service, you get increased foot traffic coming to the front counter. Of course, you're still getting 911 calls that the department still answers for fire and ambulance at this stage. There's a number of calls that they take. So we've started building in that second desk position. So there's a second person there to ensure that people aren't calling 911 waiting for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, like's been the issues in other places across the province. On a side note, but I also think equally important, it allows the dispatcher on a busy shift to actually go to the bathroom without having to take a radio or the cell phone with them, so that they can answer phones and radio calls while they're in the bathroom. Take lunch breaks, take their other breaks. They work 12-hour shifts. So some of the other times, like overnight, less busy. So we only have one person on, and generally, unfortunately, they still have to carry the radio with them wherever they go for obvious reasons, or they'll get a member to man the phones for 5 or 10 minutes while they use the washroom, but we can manage with that. I think we're to the point where during the day we can't manage with only having one person working. So that's been kind of the buildup with the 2.75 hours from London that was put into last year's budget. So we're not asking for that this year, but just explaining how we got there. The problem we had before was we had 4 or 5 casual dispatchers. That's an extensive amount of training for people who then get minimal hours. And we were finding after they took, everybody has to take a minimum of 600 hours of training before they're qualified to work as a standalone dispatcher. But then they weren't getting significant hours and were often leaving for other jobs. I mean, they had a good skill set that translated into quite a few other opportunities. So the idea with going to the 0.75 was guaranteeing the hours, and then we went down to 2 permanent part-time positions. Throughout this year, a couple of other things have happened, but we're finding that 0.75 spread between 2 people is just barely enough to cover all the holidays, the training days, the earned days off, because they work 12-hour shifts, so they're working 48 hours in a work week. So it translates to 9 extra days off over the year. So there's a significant amount of coverage, and we've always been covering it. So it's not really a new expense. I think with the training and the amount of time and money we invest in people, that guaranteed hours lets us hang on to people. As luck would have it, unfortunately, this past year we've lost 2, not because they went to other employment, but because of personal issues and things that they had to leave. So it was just sort of bad timing and bad circumstances, I guess, in that case. So it's been a good addition to the team, but unfortunately this past year we haven't been able to fully see how it's going to work. But we are noticing now that, as I said, that the 2.75 positions, really the majority of that is going to cover off the holidays and leave and stuff like that. And then on top of it, one of the 0.75 people goes up to cover off that 12-hour permanent full-time position. Currently, they're working 5-6 hour shifts a week, so 30 hours, so 0.75. When they go there, they're obviously now working 48 hours that week. So there is a bit of an increase in hours that maybe we didn't completely account for. The other part-time dispatcher now, we have to increase their hours a little bit. Now we're not putting it up to 12, but we're putting it up to 8 hours to maintain that second desk position on their really peak times during the day. So there's a 2-hour increase for that dispatcher too. So essentially every time somebody else takes leave, we have to increase the permanent part-time dispatchers by 18 hours that week. So over the course of a year, that adds up to quite a few more hours, like 700 or 800 more hours on top of what they've already been scheduled for, planned for. The other piece of what we asked for last year, the idea was with these 0.75 people is we could start doing some succession planning and support, so admin support roles while they were either doing the dispatch role, or when we didn't need them in dispatch, using them like to support the court liaison officer or somebody. As I said, we're finding that their hours are mostly eaten up supporting dispatch. So we haven't really gained anything on the admin support side, other than some minor tasks we started assigning them that they can work at the dispatch desk, but we can't give them anything significant or complicated like disclosure or anything like that while they're there being interrupted 30, 40 times during the day. Like, it's just a recipe for mistakes to happen and then court cases getting thrown out. So we've decided not to do that. On this year's budget, we're asking for an additional 0.75 person, and we kind of put it under dispatch. Chris and I talked a little bit more about it today, that maybe we need to readjust that or move that a bit, which will have an effect on that 30%, but it's obviously just going to move to somewhere else, so there'll be an increase. But we're looking at a third person coming in whose more dedicated role is that admin support piece. We still don't have any support for our court liaison officer. There's 2 or 3 new, more complicated court processes, filing, disclosure, records keeping, digital records management, and that ultimately she is responsible for. These are being mandated by the government. We don't have a choice. At some point, the Crown's still accepting the old way, but we're getting near to the point where they're going to say, okay, time's up. You got to start submitting all of your disclosure via this format and in this specific layout template that's put in there. But again, that makes extra work for the court liaison officer who's dealing with a lot of these electronic packages. That's problem number one. So the workload and the complexity of the workload keeps increasing. The second part is that our court liaison officer is approaching a time where she could retire, and we have no succession planning in place for somebody to move in there. So I think, it's prudent now to start having somebody in there part-time that can start taking off a little bit of the workload, but also learning the systems and using them regularly so that when the court liaison officer, who clearly earns her holidays, gets those too, and then we have somebody that can step in and take those on full-time while she's on holidays, rather than, we're finding stuff is being left to accumulate because the people that are sort of backfilling for her right now aren't current in all the systems and haven't been using them extensively for recent times. So apart from the workload that's sitting there waiting for the court liaison officer when she gets back is not a good thing to have. The timeliness and the seriousness and the increased level of risk for things that are going through court, like specific documents that are required for trials or disclosure, warrants that are put on the system, and then once they're executed, they need to be removed from the system. So if they aren't and somebody gets rearrested a second time, we're likely to get sued for that. If somebody is released on court documents and there's conditions around those, and they don't get put on in a timely fashion and something happens, the police interact with them, but there's no record of the conditions, so they release them. And then, he's gotten off with not being charged for a breach, but also potentially goes on to commit further crime because the police didn't hold him when he should have. And then again, the flip side of that is people go to court or they do things or they get conditions varied. And if they're not taken off the system, and then obviously if they get arrested or charged for something when they should have been taken off, that's a risk and liability and potentially significant cost to the department. So there's quite a few more things that she does, but I think those are kind of the overview of them. And again, I think that we need to start having some administrative support in the department. That's their dedicated job, not off the side of their desk job. It's in the presentation. It was in the presentation last year that there hasn't been any admin support added to the department since 2002. And total different argument, but same situation as our supervisor dispatcher, who's full-time dispatch, but he's continually over the years had numerous what I would consider admin support functions and roles and responsibilities added to his sort of, probably not job description, but his actual job. That's another area where we need to start looking at piecemealing some of those varied responsibilities out from him and assigning them to somebody else. So, whether this 0.75 this year can help with that, or some of the other duties that could go to to the current dispatchers, we need to start looking at that for succession planning reasons. But we asked for a full-time person last year. We agreed to take it out, but sort of with the understanding that we'd be asking for it again, and now we've reduced it to 0.75. So I think it's more than a needed ask and a fair ask, and really that's the only additional staff we're asking for this budget season.
Okay, Christine, you're okay?
Oh, thank you. Yes, that more than answers my question. I appreciate all the information and the background. Thank you.
I guess before the recommendation, I just wanted to thank Chris, because all you guys, I just found this was like well presented and full of information. Can I get moved that the Nelson Police Board accept the preliminary budget as presented, and Devin seconded, Matt, and all in favor? Motion passed. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Consent agenda.
Friday.
Was that?
That was quick, eh?
Oh, out there, I see women's right there, right there.
I think the amount of times we've made you guys wait
Yeah.
for our meetings, right? I was
Slightly thinking that, but I was thinking you were probably the wrong guy to make wait because it's not, that's your fault. We had to sit there for 3 or 4 hours a few times, but. Did you get a coffee or anything at least?
Action item, just really quickly. And I really kind of want to have a discussion around these checklists and how exactly it is that we as a board ensure that these policies are being created. And because I don't like, that was some like heavy, oh, we have a big responsibility here. And I don't know exactly how we fulfill that as a board.
Sorry to interrupt. Did we adopt the minutes from the last meeting yet?
This is the consent agenda. So that's like, those are the two things I'm asking to pull out of the agenda.
Yeah.
That's in the consent agenda.
We
So-
didn't do 3C though, the consent agenda is 3D. Oh, no, it's on the consent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So those were my kind of two, I just wanted to, like, in the action items is not a big deal. I was just like curious about us having a meeting with council because it's been a long time.
That was
So we don't need to talk about that.
the action one.
That was the action item.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, yeah, just this whole, I just want to have a conversation about it. And I know it's 7:00.
I had an idea for that this would be an HR committee project,
Okay.
because I attended the meeting, but stayed away.
Sure,
Stayed
not
away.
governance,
I mean, it could be a combination. Maybe it is government.
right? Like this, like
I
this.
think it's a governance committee. That's what I think it falls under.
Okay, well,
That's
I
my
was,
2 cents.
they would kind of go through, because I mean, the presentation and everything included is, I think, pretty good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Although it's just not entirely clear to me. Like I went through all the slides, looked at everything that came. I just, in terms of kind of like the creation and the implementation and our fiduciary responsibility to make sure those things are getting carried out, I just am not, it's not
Yeah.
clear to me how. So,
And so that's one of the things that I had volunteered to take away as part of governance. But yeah, I'm not feeling great right now, you guys, so it's a little bit more delayed than I thought. But yes, I think it falls under governance. Obviously, other committees might need to be pulled in, but yes, from a accountability perspective, it I think falls under governance.
Okay, yeah, that was, yeah, I thought.
Okay.
So it gets addressed, because I think there's good stuff in there.
yeah, I think so too. That was like actually some really excellent reading. That was all I had.
So I will add those to the governance, next time the governance committee meeting meets. And then I will work with Sonia to schedule a meeting with the board and council.
Thank you. I was like,
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
I had already forgotten that I'd asked about it. It's been 45 seconds. Okay, thank you, Shiloh.
Did anyone else have anything they want to pull out and discuss? Can I get a mover that the Nelson Police Board accepts the consent agenda as presented? Evan, seconded, Matt, and all in favor? I think the next item, number 4, is just, I guess, pushing the, the committees and all that discussion to next meeting. Number 5, did any directors have anything they wanted to report it or discuss? Okay, we'll just keep ticking along. Number 6, new business and late items. We discussed the finance committee. The next topic would be the WorkSafe top up for exempt staff.
So this actually kind of came to light with the inspector out working operationally, supporting the team and dealing with one of the hotspot areas in the city that we get a lot of calls about, requests for the city to patrol. So while they're attempted to make an arrest and the person fled, and while chasing them, the person threw their skateboard back and ultimately resulted in the inspector injuring his leg. So fast forward now when we're looking at potentially effects. Fortunately, didn't have to be off work, but prompted us to kind of look into it and discuss or ask HR how we were covered under WorkSafe and top up and those sorts of things. And it appears there is really no coverage. So even though in management our contracts state that we need to be still operational police officers and respond as backup and attend calls when needed and go to crime scenes and things like that. So we have the same requirements operationally as a constable, but now found out that if you get injured going to calls and being backup, that there's not the same coverage that there is for the constables doing operational work. Well, constables, sergeants, everybody. So I guess long story short is we're just asking that be recommended and accepted as the same policy as the collective bargaining. And I'm sorry, I don't have it on the right page, but it has the section number in there.
927.
That management, police officers acting in operational roles would have the same benefits for coverage if injured on duty.
Chief, and I'm sorry, I'm talking way more than I was hoping tonight, but I understand the rationale, but I'm concerned when we start referencing a collective agreement for provisions that will extend to, I don't know what the right words are, but I call them management staff. I don't know if it creates any sensitivities with the association. I'm not sure why this would have not been done before. Like, I kind of get it at a point in time like tonight, this makes sense, but without understanding the implications of that, I don't know, maybe someone who has more experience could help or speak, or you could provide some context or background. Like, I would have thought that it would be covered under WorkSafe if someone was injured on the job, like per usual WorkSafe policies. So
I think it's the top up and the additional coverage that is through work, though. That's, I mean, if you get injured on work, WorkSafe should cover that portion of it. But we were told, and Jason can clarify if I'm not relaying this as it was said, because I did talk some with Lindsay and Jason and I when we were in a quick meeting, but I think Jason had some follow-up conversations with her. But actually, why don't I just let you explain that? Because
Sure. So there was a risk that I was going to have surgery and that I would have been off for probably 2 months. And during that time, I would only be paid the maximum amount of WorkSafe, which would have been, I think, about $85,000. So I would have been out a significant portion of my salary for those 2 months that I was off due to an injury at work. Whereas the members, as it stands now, if they receive the same injury and we're off that same time, they'd receive the top up for up to a year. So their salary would be topped up to their normal salary.
yeah, and I understand all that. I guess having come from a union environment, I mean, as management staff, we had different levels of coverage or benefits than the union, because the union negotiates on behalf of their members a collective agreement. So part of this for me is like, I would be concerned, like, again, extending a benefit that's been negotiated as part of a collective agreement without, like, to me, it's opening up potentially the collective agreement because you're now extending the benefits beyond the members of that, like, association in terms of a benefit here. So I don't know, like, to me, it'd be fine to say this applies to, you know, anyone who performs an operational function, but that should have been part of the collective agreement in my mind.
I don't think we're looking to reopen I think we're just looking to adopt that wording for management, not outside of the collective agreement.
Yeah, I don't think we would reference it. It's just the wording is already there, so. I
You
mean,
would just add it to
Yeah,
to
yes.
your existing contract.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I guess, okay.
Can we have this come
And
back?
yeah.
I'd like to just, can we just refer this, please?
I guess the only thing one last thing I want to add on is, obviously this is potentially a high risk job, and in other situations, I don't know if, the person filling in the potholes or the person driving the forklift in the factory, if they're not there, it's a busy day, the manager doesn't go down and then start running the forklift. Like, I think that's a bit the difference. Like, we're compelled to go and act as police officers, and much like their argument is, you don't have the right to refuse unsafe work. So I don't see where the coverage in this instance should be different. And I understand your point about working it in or referencing the collective agreement. And I think that's probably something I agree we should avoid, because it's a bit of a unique circumstance. But I am saying, I think that if there's a bank robbery and I send Jason to go help with the bank robbery and risk getting shot, he should have the same coverage as everybody else at that scene.
I don't have a problem with this. I just want to speak to why I just want to refer it, because the language has to change within. If I can't, for some of the reasons that Christine's talking about, the way this is written out, I need to look at one of your contracts to see this, because you're talking about this article, right? So I just want to make sure that this article is not the article, and you're citing the number of the article that's in the CA in the collective agreement, right? So you're saying you want to have this. We just got to make sure that when we write this into language, we write it into language that's not referring to a collective agreement. Is one of the bigger issues here, right? Because you're not in the collective agreement. So I want this referred, because we don't have it written right. Like, we have to figure out what the right writing is, and then also then it can come back for the discussion. Because I think that everybody gets, and I know that most management has always had the same top-up provisions in other contracts that I've worked with, but they're not citing what looks like right out of the contract language. That's what I'd like to have. Are you okay with that, Christine, if it comes back and we look at this written?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it would help me if I understood what other departments generally do in those situations as well. But yes, I agree 100%. Thank you.
Okay, we'll leave
So we don't have to shove everything into December. This could you two don't get into any trouble until January, okay?
Well, that's the only thing. There is some urgency to it in the event that something happens.
You can come to the board to request an exception.
All right, so we'll put that action item for a future meeting. 6C is, I guess, discussing the number of meetings we do, possibility reducing that number. And it was brought up, if we did reduce it, we can call a meeting as necessary. Did anyone have any opinions on this in general? Yeah.
Well, I suppose my only concern is, we have a meeting every month already, and it's 7:30 at night. And I just worry that if we cut 2 or 3 meetings out a year, that we set ourselves, I like the ones that we're done at 6:30. But I don't see us ever being done at 6:30 if we're cutting 2 or 3 meetings out a year. That's my concern, is that we already have big agendas every month. And especially this year with all this WhatsApp stuff happening, I just would be concerned that we're skipping meetings, but that's just my,
I agree. I'd rather have more that are shorter.
Yeah.
Than marathon catch up.
Oh, this is what we've usually done. We've never had one in August.
because we're away
Yeah.
anyway with Cap G, if those who.
Yeah, but we've never,
Yeah.
But I'm aware we've never had one in August,
Yeah.
so just leave it without one in August. And did we not cancel one time because we were gonna have quorum? I mean, that occurs sometimes too, when
Yeah.
people can't come, so. Just thought we could get rid of one on April the 1st.
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather have more and shorter.
So we don't need to have a motion then, we'll just move on.
Well, we got to look at the schedule.
Status quo remains.
The schedule, approve the schedule.
It's just too far ahead to plan.
Yeah, we'll just do a motion to kind of approve the calendar as we discussed. Keep it the same. Can I have a mover? Kevin, seconder, Kurt, and all in favor? Okay, motion passed. 6D, this is regarding electing the board chair. I think based on the wording here, this will occur at the December meeting.
I think the idea is to make sure that we have everybody here. I mean, it's, once again, I still haven't met the new, I still have not met the new board person. What's her name?
Marta,
Marta.
she's at one meeting and you weren't there, yeah?
She's been away. She's
Yeah.
sick this meeting.
Yeah, so I think it's important that everybody's here, and then obviously that, and along with the signing, we've moved to December, that's a good discussion about chair, vice chair, board,
Committees. Yeah.
committees,
Yeah,
do
totally.
it all at once. That's already in December.
Okay. 6E is request for Nelson Police Foundation funds. You want to talk about that?
So in your handout, there is a proposal for a Nelson Police mascot. I secured funding through ICBC for $3,000. And so I'm seeking the remaining portion from the Nelson Foundation. As of right now, no one is chairing the Nelson Foundation. So that's why it's presented to the board for funding. And I'm open to any questions.
From the Police Foundation.
So the question I have is again about, so we've suspended the foundation. There's back in the minutes of one of our board meetings a year ago or 18 months ago, maybe even longer, my time frame is getting lost. We sort of suspended that a little bit in terms of it was difficult recruiting people to that. So my understanding is all the money is held in the Osprey, like that's where the money was being held anyways, is in the Osprey Foundation. And so, I mean, I haven't seen, was this in the minutes or is it here? The foundation financials is right here.
And I think the difference between endowment and flow through, I kind of refer to that as restricted funds and unrestricted.
Oh,
funds.
okay.
What restricted is, I think their whole purpose is to earn interest in order to do that $1,000.
Well, we want to do the scholarships.
The scholarship.
The money from the run would have gone into that fund
Yes.
to then create the scholarships in perpetuity.
So glad you explained that. I was so confused.
It's, I'm doing more charities these days.
Yeah.
So I think this would be coming out of that unrestricted. funds.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Which,
So the $14,000.
that's dated end of June.
June 30th,
This is pretty
2025.
good.
Yeah, that's what this looks like on this
Yeah.
balance sheet. And then there's 34,000 in the endowment. So is it 5277 or is it now
No,
2277? that you want?
5277 is the request on top of the ICBC. So it's $8,277 total. And it is a professional mascot made by a Canadian company.
And what are we calling them?
I was actually thinking of going to the schools and having some sort of naming competition for the kids to That was just me brainstorming.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. So you didn't come up with a name either.
No, no.
So I think back to what you're saying, this would be something the board would. There's no one else on this.
Because there is nobody, there is no foundation board. It's not like they haven't met. There is no foundation board. So I think it does come back to the police board to make that decision.
I don't know if anyone else has any objections or comments or.
I love that mascot. He's so cute. He's so cute.
Firefighters have a mascot too, right?
That's why ours has to be better.
Right, for time.
I like it.
I don't, you know what? I think it's fun. I just want to know who's making the costume. I saw the picture.
Who
Of
has to
that-
wear it?
I saw the
I'm wearing it first.
I saw the picture from we're gonna definitely be the rival of Victoria because in the pictures there with the diversity thing, they had a picture of their.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the Saanich dog.
The Saanich dog, yeah, the Saanich dog or whatever. So I was like, okay, like,
So do we just need to pass a resolution to do that? Okay.
And so can I get a mover that the,
I'll make the,
NPD
I'll
approved
second.
the, okay. All in favor? Okay, motion pass. And can I get mover that the regular meeting,
We haven't had a report yet.
so I think that, do you want to make that comment?
In regards to the report,
Your reports, yeah.
yeah. There was limited to report, like the budget stuff, there was a number of things that I would have reported on that we were already on the agenda. So in the interest of time, there was no chief report this week,
Okay,
or
great.
this month.
In camera too.
Sure.
Making sure.
Go for it.
So we successfully applied for a grant through the Community Safety and Target Enforcement Program for $12,500 for enhanced foot patrols. And so there's been 2 members out 6 shifts right now, and there's 6 additional shifts to come. And I was at City Hall for a meeting, and there was positive feedback from staff there acknowledging the enhanced foot patrol that they've seen in the Corps.
Enhanced frequency, not better shoes.
No.
so can I just ask then, is that only daytime hours or are we looking at some into evening foot patrol?
So there was a crime analyst that did some data research for the RCMP for us for this, and they calculated time to be 11 to 5 was the most beneficial time for street disorder.
11 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon.
So a 4-hour window within that time frame.
Right.
Is that because stuff isn't getting reported as frequently in the evening because there's not as many people out to make reports? Like,
Maybe it is based on our stats, so
Yeah.
call volume and crimes being reported.
okay,
Could be.
because I just feel like people are disordered at night, but that's an interesting.
Because like I'm just looking at like the last police report that came out, like I'm a bit confused by that and like that report that came out on Monday that went to the media,
Oh, with the theft from vehicles?
all the vehicles.
So that wouldn't-
I'm pretty sure that's not at 2 in the afternoon.
This is more focused on street disorder, so mischief, public consumption of drugs and
Okay.
alcohol, theft.
Okay. I was thinking, that's good.
Like
that you give
crime
it some
theft from
titles,
stores.
some titles
Yeah.
for me. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you. The, because, and was all of that, can I ask that in the open meeting? I was curious to know, was all of that car thievery, bad behavior, all in the same locale?
Close.
Just a reminder for everybody to make sure that you do not leave anything visible in your car that's, looks like it's worthwhile, because it seems to me even in some of the cases of those reported break-ins that it wasn't that there was necessarily anything in the vehicle, even they're still just,
Window smashing and door handle damaging.
yeah,
Oh, jeez.
which is expensive car repairs.
I left my car open.
Like my
I got my
2002
parking
RAV.
money and my window smashing hammer and a lighter. Didn't take anything else.
Well, sometimes you have to wonder, like, should I just leave the door open so they don't have the damage if there's nothing in the vehicle? I mean,
I probably lucked out, right? That I didn't get broken. I don't know.
anyhow, okay, thank you for that.
That's it. Can I get a move that the regular meeting at 25 Nelson Place will be adjourned? Next meeting held on December 7th. Second by Matt. All in favor?
Oh, Janice.
One done.
Do that.
Oh, that was a doozy.
Ooh, was looking.
Is there anything in the in camera?
I